All right, Mr. Q. Let's go. Trump. This guy. Love him, hate him. Keeps you on your toes. Nobody can say he doesn't. We had a totally different thing planned, man. It's all right. All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. Of course, the best place to follow us is right here on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. Thank you to Locals, Rumble, and a few people on YouTube for being my little guinea pigs yesterday while we were playing around with Rumble Studio, which is something I do want to try to use in the future. I think that obviously, if it hasn't become obvious, I am trying to get as many people on Locals as possible. And we found out yesterday that once you blur that image out, there's really nothing else you can do about it. You can't go back. So hopefully they will integrate that in Rumble. If you are a supporter and you're watching on Rumble, then obviously you can see it. Otherwise, if you're a supporter, we need something that tells people, hey, go over to Locals. If you're watching it here, you should be on Locals, kind of thing. All right. And if you're on YouTube, that's why I give you that code. We're due for an update on that code. So if you want a Locals, if you want to become a local supporter instead of being a member on YouTube, I'll get you a code to be able to do that. I still have it. I just think that it has the year in it. And if that's the case, I'll have to update it. But if it's not, I'll just put it in the community section. And those of you who have memberships, if you really want to, some people have both. I mean, and I love you guys for it. It's really amazing. And it shows how much you appreciate our work because you're doing it just to be supporters in both areas. I know that it's not lost on us. Believe me. All right. Wearing a long sleeve shirt today because, again, it's cold out there. I don't know about you guys, but Trump changed his tariff strategy and the weather changed their strategy. And the People's Pundit wasted a not so small amount of money on chemicals for the pool, trying to get it ready to go. All right, look, let's go ahead and read the man's statement, and then let's read some reactions. And then we'll talk about the politics of tariffs because there's a poll that I do want to show you. And I got to tell you, I'm going to give him a shout out right now. Actually, I'm going to give him a shout out. Where is my profile? Not those two comments I want to show because I think they both encapsulate what we're talking about here. All right, because that's going to be two sides. All right. First and foremost, Jonathan Gillespie on Twitter, a Twitter follower, ex-follower, posted under this poll the following post. And I want to give him a shout out because he gets it. If YouGov can't be trusted to predict elections, why should we trust them to provide reliable data on public opinion? It's in response to a poll showing Trump's favorability rating going very underwater with 18 to 29-year-olds. It's far more likely that YouGov got some noise that they are gross at, got some noise on their prior survey. And I got to tell you, everybody who can poll Donald Trump, who has demonstrated that they can poll Donald Trump correctly, really has not seen this kind of a swing. This is crazy. That's a 40-point swing. That's absolutely nuts. Public opinion doesn't move like that. It moves like that over vast periods of time. Whole demographics do not change their opinion by 45 points in a month. It's ludicrous. And it just gets back to what Jonathan says. If YouGov can't be trusted to predict elections, why should we trust them to provide reliable data on public opinion? End of story. Somebody give that guy a cookie because he's right on the money. All right. I mean, it's just kind of ludicrous that every election cycle we go through the same BS. And then we get to the other side of it. We all go, oh, look how horrible this poll was. Look how horrible that poll was. And then within days, we're obsessing over their results again as if any of it is credible. If you cannot predict an election, you cannot provide accurate and trustworthy data on public opinion. That's voter sentiment, economic sentiment, whether or not they wash their underwear every day. You can't trust the results of that survey. Why do we play this game and go through this charade? It's ridiculous. Speaking on polling, this poll is a very important poll this month. Don't forget to fund the public polling project if you can and share it far and wide because, and by the way, I was playing around for you guys who didn't be my little guinea pigs yesterday, you know that we got this addition written on the website for campaigns now. So we're going to start, since it is a quarterly survey and a quarterly project, we're going to start having the campaign be the quarter. Okay, so just bear with me. It'll be public polling project or whatever we call it, spring 2025. Okay. And then it'll be public polling project 2025, for the entire cycle, the entire year. And within the campaign, you'll be able to see the different fundraisers or whatever, but it's more than that because this is what's cool about it. You're going to be able to see each effort to get that project funded and how it did, whether it made its mark or not. And then you'll be able to, like I have been wanting to do, see even if it's just like a previewed link to the actual press release where the release of the poll is. Because as it was and as it is right now, honestly, until it's implemented, all you can ever see is the fundraising effort itself, the campaigning itself. And then you got to go to a totally different area, click on the menu, click on press release, or our blog, I think it's called actually, and then go to the press releases and find each poll. It's annoying. So it would be great if you could go to the campaign. You could see each one. There will be 4 for the year as it stands right now, because honestly, we just can't expect people to pay that much. And we paid a lot ourselves just to get election polling. We wanted it. It's a lot on everybody. So we're going to break it down into quarters. Also, folks, I got to tell you, like I just said, public opinion doesn't change the way that these pollsters want you to think it changes. This is media narrative BS. People have a view on tariffs. People have a view on Donald Trump. Everyone and their mother has a view on Donald Trump. This is so ridiculous. 18 to 29-year-olds have a view on Donald Trump. It's not going to change 45 points. It's not going to happen. Not to mention, in case you didn't see the post-election surveys, Donald Trump did a lot better with 18 to 29-year-olds than previously thought. In fact, he won 18-year-olds outright. Negative 35 points. Your track record is negative, homie. Okay? All right, so let's get to what the man says here. Yeah, so I can't wait to implement that. I really am looking forward to it. All right, here's Donald Trump's post to Truth Social. For those of you who don't know, when Donald Trump is president, okay, in his first term, it was X, and now he is back on X, and his posts are mimicked on X, but the origin of those posts is on Truth Social. They serve effectively as a press release in not all of them, but when you see a policy tweet like this or a post like this, it serves as a press release for what he's going to do. And he's deadly serious. All right. So again, love him, hate him. You can also say this. He is a people's president. He doesn't do things the way other presidents do them. He doesn't go through official channels. He goes right to people to tell them what he's going to do. The media learns about it. Let me tell you, unless you're in Trump's circle or you know someone or multiple people in Trump's circle, you will not hear about it until he posts it many, many, many times on many occasions. The Maggie Habermans of the world at the New York Times, they are in the dark until he goes to Truth Social. They pretend like, oh, I spoke to this senior White House official. They're full of shit. They don't know anybody. And if somebody is talking to people like that, it's not in their immediate circle. But if somebody is, man, like in the case of what happened to Mike, Mike Waltz, if somebody like that guy should be reprimanded. And Mike should be as well in some way, shape, or form. You just don't hand you don't hand your enemies your friends' heads. Ever. Ever, ever. But he should be in some way, shape, or form reprimanded for listening to that schmuck about whether or not to add Jeffrey Goldberg to his. Who cares? They're working on a story about Donald Trump said this thing bad about servicemen. This is deja vu. This was already one of Jeffrey Goldberg's, a serial fabricator. This was already one of his Stephen Glass like fabrications. It's being recycled. It's like regifting a shitty present that nobody wants for Christmas and your family just keeps passing it around. That's Jeffrey Goldberg in the Atlantic. They run out of crap. They have no sources. They have traders that they can try to compromise. But that's how it goes. And they rehatch it. The correct answer to when you hear about that, like I said the other day, is go yourself. I don't care what Jeffrey Goldberg publishes. When he does publish it, I'm going to absolutely trash him. And no one's going to believe him because he's a serial liar. Nobody cares. Let me take a sip of water and we'll read this. All right. So this is what happened because in the two reactions we get, one has it correct. The other is reacting like a Democrat would react. And by the way, if it was a Republican who did this, I mean, a Democratic president who did this, a Republican would probably say the same thing because they would want to phrase what Trump's doing in this manner. However, I will tell you what's really going on, and I will tell you what he really is thinking. Okay, but let's read it first. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I'm hereby raising the tariff charged on to China by the United States of America to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Department of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, that's the U.S. Trade Representative, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I'm going to hold off on telling you what is really going on until we look at the responses. I'm going to go with the first one, which is a negative one that tries to paint Trump's what he does here in a negative light. Okay. And I can give me a second because I can't stand having to show tweets. Another reason why I want to do that little switch, guys. It's easier to do this, but it will be harder for me to show you some data, especially during elections. Also, I don't like how everything's so full up on stuff. All right, what do I mean by that? Like my face is like right in your right in your like poof, like hi guys, it's the People's Pundit. It's crazy. I like the barrier that you see here. I like that. I like it for when we run stuff on the bottom of the screen. I like it for when we have other things we want to put up, comments. I don't like when it is a full screen. All right. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I just don't like it. All right, let me make sure that we don't have anything here. Good old Dan. Good guy. Dan follows me. I follow Dan. I respect his opinion. Obviously, he respects mine. I just think he happens to be wrong here. But if I was him and I was in his position, I would say the same thing. All right. I mean, I'm just being real here. Any blinks. Isolating China is a safer political ground, but I imagine that too de-escalates soon. We will see if it does, and it possibly could. I'll just say this. If it does escalate, I do not share Dan's view that it's de-escalating because Donald Trump is blinking politically. All right, and we'll get to that in a second. Here is the second one, although, as is the case with so many things with this guy and Donald Trump, he's way late to the party. And again, not that they have never talked or they don't talk. Hell, he even interviews Donald Trump on his show sometimes. He has. It's just that he's not in the circle of trust. Okay. And I don't think he knows anybody who's in the circle of trust. All right. So he, unlike others, cannot pick up the phone and go, "What's going on here? What'd he say? What's he thinking?" All right. So I would expect this. After weeks and weeks, if not months now, right, guys? Months. If not weeks, if not months of this guy going on and on and on. Tariffs are a tax. Tariffs are a tax. Tariffs are this. Free trade is the GOAT. Don't forget, I donate to the Club for Growth in the Chamber of Commerce. I'm that kind of conservative. Go kill Palestinians for Israel and send money to Ukraine. Sorry. It's not Ben Shapiro. All right. After months, man, of this, he finally lands on the correct answer. Okay. He says, it's possible. I mean, because what are you going to say? Like, if you're him, what are you going to say? Because you don't really understand MAGA and you make these opinions and then you like go on and on and on your show, which is a popular show, no doubt. You can't take it away from the guy. But like, you go on and on with making these assumptions and not understanding. You just don't get it. Like, you just don't get it. So you really don't have much of a choice but to say it like this. It's possible Trump is now doing to communist China what Reagan did to the Soviet Union, defeating them economically. All right? Like, obviously, that has always been the goal. Now, there is a lot of stuff that other companies do that, other countries, excuse me. Other countries do that, of course, unfair to the United States. Peter Navarro played a tiny bit of his clip from the Sunday show on Fox, but I didn't play the whole thing on Monday. And he went into so much of it with currency manipulation, and there are just things that a lot of people have not talked about. Trump mentioned them, non-monetary tariffs, okay, trade barriers themselves, right? So the other countries they may have said some, unfavorable comments. What do you expect for them? But they didn't actually do anything. There was a lot of bloviating and a lot of threats, but they didn't really do anything. Okay. They really can't. That's the truth of it. They really can't. They have to just kind of wait around for Donald Trump to change his mind. And they thought that was the best strategy. That's what they did. And that's the smart play. Because of course he's going to. His goal is not to hurt Germany or France or the United Kingdom, and others. I mean, look, if you're doing stuff that's unfair, that really counts as unfair trade practices, then fine. But in truth, in many, many instances, as we went over on Monday when I explained this to you guys, normally it is in this case, dealing with the goods that he highlighted, they are trying to stay on China's good side because they want that cheap stuff too. So they're doing what they have to do to make sure that that relationship stays intact and the people of their country, because they have no wage growth. They have no wage growth. The entire Western world has outsourced its middle class to the rest of the developing world. And China, they are the leader of that. So they can't afford to mess things up with China and end up in a position where their people are paying for goods much higher rates without, because it's never going to happen at the same time. But what I'm saying is without wage growth and goods producing sector jobs coming along with that hand in hand. It's okay to pay more especially if it's going to be higher quality. If you're making more money, if people in your country are making more money, but Europe is screwed. It's not, well, Germany could. Germany absolutely could. There's no doubt. Germany was the military powerhouse that it was because of its industrial base. That's what they have that the other countries don't have. Does anybody know what Great Britain's main industry was during that period? And still, I mean, what made Great Britain their number one industry for the working class was what? And it's still, I don't know if I'd call it working class by our standards. Textiles, right? Textiles. So that's great and everything, and it can make you wealthy, and they of course have financial industry, but I'm talking about goods producing sector. In that sphere, they had textiles for the working class. um that doesn't that's not latent power that's easily transformed into military power. And again, this is why you guys got to join up on Locals or join the Locals book club at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday, because we read John Mearsheimer, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics. And in John Mearsheimer's work, we discuss this a lot. And then also, by the way, in Myths of Empire, when Jack Schneider is talking about factions, that's certainly applicable to what Mark Levin is saying here with how Reagan handled the Soviet Union. By the way, Reagan, especially from people like Mark Levin, he gets all the credit for dismantling Soviet Union, but there is another man who deserves a ton of credit. Does anybody know his name? Gorbachev. Gorbachev was a party man his entire life. He came up through it. The bureaucracy was hardline party. And perestroika was intended to destroy it from within. Reforms to the bureaucracy, to liberalize things. And that's what he did. In this case, we don't have that. No one's going after, we don't have a Deng Xiao or a Xi Jinping that's going to go after the bureaucracy, the ministry in China. That's not going to happen. So it has to be done with a lot more economic pain. And the kicker is here, guys, even as we pay more for goods, we would both be hurt by a trade war with China. There's no doubt. But the Chinese economy is a house of cards. It's a complete house of cards. I'm not saying ours isn't either. I'm just simply saying that we have the ability, or we have a way to survive, whereas China really would not. However, of course, it's going to cause pain. Of course. However, we did need the other nations not to bail them out. Do you remember the example of the exemptions for Iran? Well, in order to do that to Iran, which Joe Biden reversed, and that's why there was a terror attack on Israel, because that's how they funded it. Thanks, Joe. Trump implemented those. Well, he removed them. The SREs, the exemptions, special exemptions for countries that do business with sanctioned countries. It is a similar concept when it comes to tariffs and trade. It's obviously different in how it's carried out, but it's a similar concept where if you're trying to hurt China, you have to make sure that those other countries are effectively bailing them out. All right. So what Trump is absolutely trying to do here, it was always his goal, was just scare the Europeans, get them in line, and then get them in line, like on our side against China, and isolate China, which even Dan admits that's what this will do. It will, because they'll be afraid what the hell happens after those 90 days. So he can do this, see if anybody cheats, see if anybody does anything that's undermining the strategy. Wait, and then he'll have the moral high ground, by the way, because he said, I gave you a damn 90-day freeze and you did this anyway. And then the country's going to be like, tariff those sons of bitches. He'll have moral ground. He'll have political capital from it. But he needs to isolate China if this is going to work. He's got to. He's got to. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Meanwhile, what time is it? 2:30. I mean, the good thing is I technically don't have a read today. I always like to give the sponsors more time than they really get, but I don't know how much we'll be able to give them today. Because the truth is, the tariff fears and everything that we've been hearing about is isolated to a certain class and a certain group of people in this country. I see Andrew Yang. Andrew's a cool guy, by the way. He ran for president in 2020. He is a cool guy. I don't agree with anything he believes, basically. And I don't know how the hell he turned out still to be a Democrat, since he was supposed to be afraid of the surveillance state and concerned about wars and stuff like that. Andrew, you're in that party now. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what makes you a Democrat if you do believe the things you say you believe. All right. And I just want to leave ample time for Paxton. We don't have, a ton of time we need to spend on him, but there is some stuff I think you should know, because I do see a lot of MAGA celebrating, and I think that I like Ken. I know Ken personally, and I like him. He's a good guy. He's always been very respectful to me, my wife. We've had good conversations. Don Smith knows him. They were, so does, John O'Shea, who ran for Congress. That is Ken's very good friend. He's a good guy. He's the real deal. I do just want to give a little bit of a caveat, and I wish Ken would come on and explain himself. But a lot of people don't like to come on the show because I'm not War Room. Okay? Like, you're not going to come on here and cheerlead. I'm going to ask you shit. You're going to answer it. And that's the way it's going to go. Otherwise, I'd rather just do my own show. All right? Okay. I see Andrew posting all this stuff now for days. There's one at least a day. I've spoken to this person, and they're off the Trump train because of tariffs. I mean, Main Street is not off the Trump train. Wall Street is off the Trump train. Wall Street really has never been on the Trump train. So when he says, I spoke to business leaders, I don't know who the hell he's talking about. People in Silicon Valley who already hated Donald Trump, people in Wall Street who already hated Donald Trump, because the business community that loved Donald Trump, plus some now, are still with him. The farmers, and I'm teeing this up for a reason, they are really remarkable. They know that they will be hurt by these tariffs before the consumer is, and worse than the consumer is. Yet, they're standing with Donald Trump. No space between them. Not only am I not seeing big groups come out against Donald Trump that are like significant big groups that supported him before, but I'm seeing other groups that did not support him praising him. Like the UAW president, for instance, who is a left-winger, saying that this will save the American dream. Trump knows what needs to be done, and no other person was willing to do it. Because they have to get reelected. Or they're worried about the person coming after them getting reelected. Trump's not. He's just worried about whether or not we're going to have a goods-producing sector and this economy is going to collapse. Can't have a trade deficit like this, folks, forever. You just can't. By the way, it absolutely does slice off of GDP. So, that's why GDP, that's a big part of the reason that GDP was doing better under Donald Trump, because of the direction the trade deficit was going. All right, but notice he said he said business leaders. He didn't say small business. He didn't say farmers. He didn't say the autumn. Like, these industries that are going to be impacted, some of them are happy with this arrangement. Like, to some extent, the military-industrial complex. They are absolutely happy with the arrangement that's been going on in the status quo. Not what Trump is trying to do, but the status quo. They've been happy with it. Even though semiconductors, rare earth materials, of course, you need for those and many other things, such as like ICBMs, folks. Without rare earth materials, you cannot create or control, really, ICBMs. Those are intercontinental ballistic missiles, for people who don't know what that stands for. But they're still happy with it because they would rather make a bigger profit, and they don't really care that China is shipping out their rare earth. Now, I've heard people make the argument saying, well, why wouldn't we deplete China's deposits before we deplete our own? I'm all good for that. But you have to be able to do your own as well. We've talked about this before. I just point out again, COVID should have been a slap in the face. The pharmaceutical industry is absolutely on Trump's impacted tariff list. During COVID, we couldn't get enough PE. We couldn't get enough medications. We couldn't even get the ingredients to make certain medications because Big Pharma buys it cheap from China. That is antibiotics, for instance, it's on the list. In an event of a serious pandemic, not a COVID, where old people and people with pre-existing conditions are the ones who are at risk. I'm talking about something that is truly deadly, kill your ass on the spot. We would never make it. In fact, we'd probably fall apart in 4 days. It'd be the 4-day rule. And it would be mayhem, mass chaos, and a complete breakdown. That's the truth. You all feel stable out there and you think like nothing like this could ever happen. What are you talking? History is wrought with this. That is the norm. We just happen to be, or happen to have been, living in a period of stability where, like other people throughout history, we thought foolishly that this cannot happen to us. Not only can it, it will. It's a certainty. And how well we're prepared for that will determine whether or not we survive or not. And right now, we're not prepared. And unfortunately, during COVID, political discourse was a freaking joke. Everything was about politics. Nothing was serious. Nobody took on these very serious issues. Something else we were talking about in book club. Republicans are like trapped in like 2000 discussing trade. As they are with so many other issues, by the way. And we don't have serious enough discussions. And we had some really, by the way, we have some really knowledgeable and interesting people in that book club who know how this stuff works out in practice, not in theory. All right. Anyway, you may have noticed that all of these talking points that have gone out and all of the repeated statements by people like Andrew Yang, I spoke to this person, but they're not naming anybody. I spoke to somebody today who loved Trump and now he doesn't. Okay, take your anecdotes and stick them up your ass. Trump's approval rating is holding steady. He's actually gotten praise from people who hate him, typically hate him. So it seems to me that people, I'm going to show you a poll here in a little bit, people are either making stuff up or all anecdotes are data. So it's like you don't dismiss them. No, I mean, they're probably just fabricating stuff. Or they're talking to squishy people who could have a different opinion tomorrow. But I tend to lean towards they're fabricating. And you may notice he chooses his words wisely. He didn't say I spoke to small business owners who were on Trump's camp because that's who supported Trump. Big business leaders did not support Trump. Not once, not any of the 3 times that he ran for president. Big business supported the Democrat. They supported Hillary Clinton 3-1. They supported Joe Biden nearly 6-1. And they supported Kamala Harris over 6-1. Trump was supported by the everyday man and woman, the working man and woman, the middle class man and woman, the working class man and woman, and small business. And the NFIB, even though there was all of this crap, all right, all of this nonsense about tariffs and this and that and the other thing, ironically, that's not why the Small Business Optimism Index fell, and it did. For the record, the NFIB Small Business Optimism Index hit its record highs both times under Donald Trump. Its average for 51 years has been 98, a level of 98. The uncertainty index decreased 8 points from February, which had the second highest reading ever at 96. It fell to 88. So it's a little bit of like, well, that really doesn't make sense, right? If you listen to what Bill Duncanberg says, and then what's cool is that you go through panel responses, all right? They were just scared by the media. And then they have their real concerns that they have been, that their real issues that they have been concerned about for quite some time. And guess what? They're not tariffs. The implementation of new policy priorities has heightened the level of uncertainty among small business owners over the last few months. Small business owners, I got the hiccups, I'm sorry, have scaled back expectations on sales growth as they better understand how these arrangements might impact them. Okay, fair enough. But when you look inside what they're saying, the number one issue isn't tariffs. It's not even taxes, which has been up there for a long time. The number one issue, for instance, that they found was that they were not able to find qualified applicants for a position they were trying to fill. That was their number one. They basically said, I can't find workers. The index that gauges whether or not there are openings rose. So what's going on? Everyone is expecting taxes to go up. It's the highest reading since March of 2024 because they're concerned. This is their real concern, taxes. That the Tax Cut and Jobs Act will not be made permanent. This is what they are finding. Labor quality is the number one. That's the most important. The single reporting labor quality as the single most important issue. All right. Taxes, however, they're concerned that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to sunset. If you guys don't remember, you don't recall, or you just didn't know, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was Donald Trump's signature piece of legislation during the first term. And what it essentially did was reduce the corporate tax rate into what is called the Goldilocks zone. Okay. 15 to roughly 25% is the Goldilocks zone for corporate taxes. The United States of America before Donald Trump had the highest corporate tax rate, I believe, in the Western world. And that's incredible compared to some other countries. But in any event, they did decrease it. And we've talked about this before, Goldilocks zone. Obviously, if you lower it too much, then you will reduce revenue. You may not reduce activity. It depends, but you will reduce revenue to the government, which will result in potentially a deficit if it's not coupled with spending cuts, et cetera, et cetera. And then obviously that will turn into a federal debt or national debt, we'll call it, because of different nations. And if you increase it too high, then companies engage in tax avoidance, like we talked about with tariff avoidance on Monday. It's basically the same thing. Of course, big companies can do this. Small businesses can to some degree as well. They'll just have less economic activity, which in essence, between the tax avoidance and the less economic activity, results in lower revenue. Just raising taxes does not make more money for the government. That is a complete misnomer by Democrats who are Keynesian economists, and they don't understand the economy. Keynesian economics is garbage. It's not even real. It's based off of, its justification is based off of bogus interpretations of the New Deal era and faulty data. It is not legitimate, period. Stimulus does not have a long-term impact on the economy at all. It's a short-term impact on consumer spending, and it results in absolutely zero created jobs. It's garbage. Obama's shovel-ready jobs, for instance, the American Investment Act, ended up prolonging the economic recovery after the Great Recession. So in any event, as you can see here, it's like it makes you wonder, who the hell is this guy talking about? Because He's not talking about small business. They're not that concerned about it like Wall Street is. All right, which brings me to an article when Trump, because it's already 2:44. Maybe I will take a short break, but when Donald Trump changed my entire day, I was going on to Locals to tell people that's Donald Trump for you, right? And I saw this article that somebody had posted, and admittedly, I don't read everyone from this website, but I did read this one, and I found it funny because it's from a pollster that usually finds very negative results for Donald Trump and on these issues in general. But the wording of the question, as we have talked about so many times, matters. A pollster can word a question in a way that elicits the response that they're looking for. You can do that by a couple of ways, but two ways is to simply word it the way you want, that in a way that you think you're going to do that, then injecting bias is usually the way that you're going to do that. Or two, by omitting information, which is also, I don't know which one's worse. If one is worse than the other, both are incorrect ways to do it. When you are polling public opinion, if you really want to know how people feel about something and how they're going to vote on something, one, you should avoid the use of all media narrative buzz terms, buzzwords, buzz terms, buzz phrases, anything. Because you're going to, again, trigger or elicit a response that is something they're associating with that, and you will not get the correct answer. We showed you how we typically poll tariffs last week. And in this case, there is a bit of a twist on it because in the first administration, it was about, and it still is, about using tariffs as leverage in trade negotiations to get a more favorable trade agreement for the United States. And then typically we'll ask them whether or not they are willing to deal with the negative economic impacts of that over short term, middle term, long term, if it means getting a better outcome economically later on. And when you do that, you'll get very different answers from how you're seeing pollsters word these questions about tariffs now, most other pollsters. And that's a problem for a bunch of reasons. But for the pollster, if you really dupe yourself into believing that what you're doing is accurate and what you're doing is getting to the core of how people believe, then come election day, you're going to look like a jackass. As this pollster actually often does, which is, again, what's so remarkable about it. But as so many of the other pollsters who release polls on tariffs have done now for the last 3 presidential elections going. All right. So with that in mind, let me pull it up and read it. Actually, we'll take a real quick break and then we'll read it when we get back. I'm just going to do like a 30-second break or something. And I really don't see the need. The link's in the description for sponsors. We don't really technically have a read on. So I just want to make sure, being that it's already 2:47, I want to make sure that we get through it without being interrupted. So I'm going to take 30 seconds to vape and drink water to get them ready to read it. And we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. 30 seconds. You're watching Inside the Numbers. All right, tried to get it out before the end of the break. I don't think I got it all out. But again, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget, like the videos if you like them. Share them far and wide. Subscribe. But the best place to follow us always is on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Speaking of which, Locals, as we're talking about wording surveys and issues and public sentiment, we will soon have to decide. I'll probably put up a little blurb a little bit later today, get your thoughts on what I think this poll should be about. We are going to conduct a public polling project sooner rather than later. I think it's April 9th. We will do it this month. Okay. Hoping it's funded by then, but we will do it later this month. So far, I think we're like quarter of the way there. I want to say, I'm going to check. I'll give you an update right now before we get into this. And we'll have to decide what we're going to do. I'm thinking if this continues, we'll have to ask something similar, what we see in this poll. Of course, I trust my own work more than I trust anybody else's. It's just been my experience. And I think we'll need an economic sentiment update. We'll do the registered voter economic confidence index, favorabilities, approvals, and maybe an early generic ballot. Because we're already in the spring of the year before, but we're going to be talking about primaries soon. We got one we got to talk about here in a second. And when we do, we'll I think that we're going to get an idea of like where people are, at least in the beginning. I don't like dipping my toe into the water every now and then. I like making sure that we have a good grasp on stuff. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to find where on earth did they change the name of this or something? Oh, duh. Yeah, they in fact did change the name of it. Hopefully they did that right. That's not comments. Okay. We are. Whoa, where the hell did that come from? Hold on one second. That can't be right. Did somebody just give like a. No, okay. Oh, it's like, whoa. So I thought somebody gave like a lot of money. But we are up to a little over a fifth, which was that's a good week. That's a good week. A fifth of the way there. Okay, so I gotta check and make sure this guy said it was all right. I'm sure he doesn't mind. Ooh, I'm not gonna actually say those words. I was gonna say that. But if I'm sure he doesn't. And if he does, I'm sorry. But it's a good read and it's a good take on this. Okay. So you will see that they found support, and this is the Reuters Ipsos poll, which is a very bad poll. All right. Ipsos is one of the panels that is a part of this consolidation with the polling industry that I was telling you about. You have seen polls not survive 2024. And Seltzer, the so-called gold standard in Iowa, did not survive 2024. Her poll was very bad. You will see, and by the way, she missed the primary and the general, in fact. Monmouth poll did not survive, right? There are other smaller pollsters that also didn't. Gary Langer at Langer Research did not survive this consolidation. They, if I'm not, I could be mistaken, but I think it is Ipsos, if not YouGov, after conducting the ABC News Washington Post poll for 15 years or more. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Gary Langer was sidelined, and he was sidelined actually not for not polling the election correctly. He was sidelined during the primary season because Gary Langer's traditional methodology was in fact picking up on the core demographic shifts that led to Donald Trump winning rather easily the election. Younger voters, people who voted in 2020, a huge share of Joe Biden support, having voters' remorse and saying that they were going to vote for Donald Trump. Okay. Younger people, Hispanics, Black voters, you name it. All the groups that we talked about, that he wasn't doing that bad with college voters anymore. Was he going to win them? No, but he wasn't doing that bad with them. Okay. So with that in mind, you have Ipsos, which is along with YouGov, one of the ones that are benefiting from this consolidation. And the fact of the matter is, they're not good. All right. So the way they ask these questions with the prompts that many times you're not seeing, by the way, they're not reporting how the prompts are delivered to them before they should. If a survey respondent gets a prompt, like, listen, I'd like to ask you about Trump's tariffs. If in case you haven't heard, Donald Trump is implementing a 20% tariff across the board on the following countries. And he's doing it in order to get a better trade deal or to revamp the U.S. economy. Then do you support or oppose tariffs? Okay. Or Donald Trump is levying tariffs on everybody, and he's doing it because he wants to punish China for unfair trade deals and this, whatever. Like, however they lead up, they lead the respondent with the question. You should see those prompts. And in many cases with these pollsters, you are not. Unlike us, who will show the questionnaire all the time. And in fact, the only time we ever shorten anything is to fit it on a crosstab, which then is coupled with the rest of it anyway. So it doesn't, you just don't do it. All right. So this is called the Right-Wing Populist, which I've never seen before. Obviously, it is a right-wing publication. All right. And not that I've never seen it before. I don't read it on a daily basis, but somebody who writes on it and is on our locals. And I went back and read this and a couple others, so I think this guy's got the right take. This came out today. It is a 1-minute read. It's about the poll. There's Trump drinking his glass of water. Okay, all right, let me put it up bigger for you guys to see. All right. According to the latest poll from the left-leaning pollster Ipsos, thank God. The truth of the matter is they want to call everybody right-leaning unless they are themselves leftist skewed polls. And I don't mean it in the sense of they're skewed to the left with other polls. No, they're skewed to the left with the results. They're wrong all the time. They're inconsistently understating Republican shares of the vote, consistently understating, even more so, Donald Trump's share of the vote and his strength electorally. What's the rule here? If a pollster cannot poll an election, you cannot trust them with public opinion. A majority of Americans agree with the Trump administration's argument that other countries have taken advantage of the U.S. when it comes to international trade. Not only that, 50% of Americans, including nearly all Republicans, agreed that short-term pain would be worth it to make the U.S. stronger and more prosperous in the long term. Now, there you go. That's it. That is the core of the question here. Asking these questions to get support or opposition to it in a manner that suits you because you're left-leaning does not serve yourself as the hack bias pollster that you are. It doesn't serve the people that you're giving copium to, and it doesn't serve the country. The question here is, do you think these tariffs are warranted? Do you think they are? And if so, obviously, do you think it's worth it? Worth the pain that everybody says is coming? Is it worth it for the outcome that Donald Trump is stating is his outcome, is his goal? This is the type of result the administration would like to see, with the caveat that in the same poll, a majority of Americans said they opposed the tariff policy and how it was being handled. 39% supported it, 57% opposed it. 73% of Americans expect prices to rise under Trump tariffs. 4% thought prices would fall. 52% agreed with Trump's argument that other countries have been taking advantage of the U.S. when it comes to international trade. Do you guys see the order in which stuff is going? 50%, including almost all Republicans, said they agreed with the statement that, quote, any short-term economic pain is worth it to make the U.S. stronger in the long term. So despite them doing this little trick in order to give some nugget to the New York Times so they can have a left-wing favorable headline, the headline here is really that Americans are willing to do this. So if we went to the ballot box tomorrow and we said, you know what, redo, now that you know Trump is going to slap these tariffs on all of these countries, now that you know Trump is going to do this, now after you see Trump after 60 or 90 days, whatever it is, you're going to hold an election, let's do a 60-day recall, 90-day recall, whatever, let's just pretend here. Go back and redo it and vote for either Trump or Harris. Guess what? Trump is still going to win because people know what he's trying to do. All right. I mean, they support it. Based on that, this shows the administration needs to continue working on its messaging. That is 100% true. The administration's messaging sucks. I am unimpressed by the people in the White House, especially the person whose job it is to direct everybody and get the messaging on par, with what Democrat messaging is, which is effectively corporate media. The corporate media is the messenger for the Democratic Party. They do that for free, which is illegal. Forget about the section 2, what is it, 201 violation or 203? I always mess up FISA. Hold on. Forget about that. The real approach to media corruption has always been campaign finance violations. They are, in fact, giving the Democratic Party a in-kind campaign contribution. And because you get charged or fined by those counts, even if they got fined, doing it for the whole damn party would bankrupt them. The Trump administration hopes reciprocal tariffs will lead to a manufacturing boom, or at the very least, to a reduction in trade barriers in other countries, leading to more free and fair trade. Capital. That needs to be the message. The administration blasts everywhere. The message should be Democrats are for Wall Street, Republicans are for Main Street. About 40%, maybe not even 40 minutes ago, I was going to say percent. I'm thinking in statistics as always. I had told Andrew that you are the Wall Street voice here. The only reason you're getting away with it is because the Trump administration's message is so bad. Right-wing populist is right. That is the message. And it should be blasted everywhere. Democrats are for Wall Street. Republicans are for Main Street. End of story. End of story. This isn't that hard. All right, but they're having a difficult time keeping it coherent and long enough for it to sink into other people. All right. So I know we're getting real low. Anyway, go check out the right-wing populist. Actually, it's pretty cool. You guys know. I'll tell you whether or not a source is this one, that one, the other. I like the Liberal Patriot quite a bit. That, of course, is a liberal source, and there aren't many others that I can, unfortunately, recommend because they're just crazy and they are not giving any they're not adding anything valuable to the discussion. All right, moving on because it's already 3:01 and we're gonna run out of time if we don't. I'd like to play the ad, then we'll talk about it. And this is, of course, the segment on John Cornyn having the hardest challenge to him as a U.S. Senator in a primary, a Republican primary, to date. Nobody has ever been able to give Cornyn a real run. And as it stands right now, Ken Paxton is the favorite to beat John Cornyn in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. Here is the ad that he released, and we will talk about it more after it's over.
Senator John Cornyn turned his back on President Trump.
You've said that you think it's time for the Republican Party to move on from President Trump.
In politics, unless you can win an election, you're pretty much irrelevant.
John Cornyn of Texas told CBS News he simply doesn't think Donald Trump can get elected president. Quite a statement from Senator Cornyn.
Cornyn told Fox 20.
It's worth noting that Donald Trump then went on to win Texas by the largest margin we have seen a Republican president win Texas by since the freaking governor of Texas ran for the presidency. Okay? I mean, it was like that.
26, he won't be supporting former President Trump, and neither should other Republicans.
John Cornyn supports amnesty and says Texans should just deal with millions of illegal aliens.
The American people are a compassionate people, then I think they would find a way to deal with the 12 million people.
He even fought to stop President Trump's border wall.
New giant wall
from sea to shining sea makes no sense whatsoever.
The idea of a wall is somewhat off-putting to a lot of people.
And when John Cornyn joined Joe Biden to take away our gun rights, President Trump sounded the alarm.
You know, there are some Republicans, including former President Trump, who are ripping this and ripping you as well.
John Cornyn has decided to take guns from lawful gun owners. And if there's one reason you vote Republican, it's to prevent that.
John Cornyn doesn't share our values. It's time for a change. Ken Paxton is the conservative fighter they couldn't cancel.
An attorney general who has really led the way, somebody who has been brave and strong, Ken Paxton.
Ken Paxton is America's most conservative attorney general. He sued Joe Biden over 100 times to stop his lawless agenda.
I got to tell you, I got to stop it and just tell you so far. Okay. Despite the fact, which is something I did want to bring up to you, I want you guys to see the whole ad. I want to know what your thoughts are. Put them in the comment section. Despite the fact that this ad was created and put together by a bunch of Trump haters, it's an incredible ad. You may be surprised to find out that Ken Paxton and many others, the majority at this point of people running on the Republican side, many, if not most, in Texas at the national level, pretending to be MAGA, their campaigns are run by Jeff Rowe and company. And they hate Donald Trump. And Jeff Rowe, of course, is the one who made an ungodly amount of money destroying Ron DeSantis' career by convincing Ron DeSantis to run for president against Donald Trump. An endeavor that was never going to serve Ron DeSantis, that was always going to serve Jeff Rowe. And his shoot-offs, he's got multiple, factions that he works with, whether it's Axiom or others. And that's how he dips his little fingers into everything. And by the way, he ran Ted Cruz's first presidential campaign against Donald Trump too. Ken Paxton doesn't even own his own email list. It's all Axioms. All right. So despite that, they still know how to lie like crazy. So remember this, while Ken Paxton himself is in fact very MAGA, is I would argue, the most MAGA attorney general that we have seen, is one of those people that will have Donald Trump's back. The people that run his campaign do not. And if they can do that with Ken Paxton, think about how much they do it with other candidates that are running for Congress, that are running for governor, that are running for Senate. They're very good at lying. You would think this was put together by a 100% MAGA consulting group. It was not. It was put together by a bunch of Trump-hating country club rhinos who make money hands over fist. Guys, go look at the FEC reports and go see how much Jeff Rowe made and his whole team made off of destroying Ron DeSantis. A fortune. A fortune. All right. And by the way, they also sank John O'Shea, which is Ken Paxton's, his best friend. They sank his campaign. So this is, I'm telling you this so you can understand. Just because you watch a political ad doesn't mean you can believe it. And I know it's kind of sounds stupid for me to tell such a savvy audience, but the fact of the matter is they're very good at pretending to be Trump's friend, and they are not. I mean, John Duarte had them. He had Remington. This was a guy who was not MAGA at all, and yet he had his face on flyers with Trump saying he's Trump's buddy and he's going to support border walls. John didn't do shit. He went in and gave Ukraine billions of dollars, didn't do jack shit to stop Joe Biden's invasion at the southern border. Nothing. Why? Because John is himself a donor. Like Cornyn, he's huge on illegal immigration. He doesn't care at all. And he's in the military industrial complex. He is the MIC's, the rent seekers in the MIC. He has been their bitch for years. All right. And well, let's finish watching this and then I will continue on what I think in my rant here. But I just wanted you guys to hey, this is really like a public service announcement. This looks like a great video, a great ad. And it is. It's an effective ad. I'm curious if you think it is. It's an effective ad. Just remember, in this case, Ken is aligned with MAGA. He is aligned with Trump. So many others that they do this for are not at all.
As Attorney General, Ken Paxton protected our gun rights, defended the right to life, and took on the radical transgender movement to keep men out of women's sports, locker rooms, and bathrooms. A fearless conservative, he's taken on the establishment and held big tech and big pharma accountable. Now, Ken Paxton is running for Senate to stand with President Trump and help him make America great again. As our next senator, Ken Paxton will cut our taxes, defend our borders, and eliminate all the woke programs John Cornyn funded. Stand up for Texas. Fight for our future. Join the Ken Paxton for Senate team today.
All right. So, I mean, that is a really good ad. We can pause it. We can end it. We can go back. I mean, that's a good ad. That. Yesterday when we did the Rumble thing, it was flipped again. So I have this mirroring the camera. So this is here. Locals is there. It's backwards again. Locals is here. And I'd have to point here for the thing. It's not mirrored on Rumble. So got my brain a little bit. But that's a very good ad. And in this case, it happens to be 100% true. John Cornyn is all those things, and Ken Paxton is all those things. But that is not the case for, like, I hate to say this, more than 9 in 10 out of the MAGA loving campaign ads that you see. It's a load of crap. All right, which brings us to this. Like I said with the rent seekers, John Cornyn has been a good little boy for the military-industrial complex for years. The honorable thing to do here would be for John Cornyn to step down and say, it's not my time anymore. Not, I'm going to stay and, I'll let the rent seekers squeeze out more blood from a stone they've already wrung to death. They have gotten everything they've wanted from John Cornyn. He is K Street's bitch. But nobody's ever accused a U.S. Senator of being honorable before, have they? And in all likelihood, the only way he's going to get out is if we wait months, and as the months go on, if it still looks like Ken Paxton is going to absolutely humiliate this guy, which it looks like he's going to. I know, I've seen the polling by people I actually trust. And actually, they understated Trump in Texas themselves, by the way. But they got pretty close. As it stands right now, maybe it would go to a runoff, but it doesn't matter anyway, because in a runoff, Paxton wins. And he wins pretty easily. Maybe it would be like a Jeff Flake situation. As we get closer, he'll say, I'm not going to be destroyed like this. I'm leaving. Maybe. But his first inclination is not to leave. They will now rehatch everything we've ever heard about Ken Paxton before. He had an affair. He gave this friend this. He did that. Blah, 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 blah. Disgruntled employee was, by the way, the source of a lot of this. And it serves nobody. That money could have been used on the New Jersey governor's race. That money could be used later on the Senate race somewhere, because the map is still not favorable to Democrats. Even if Republicans have a bad midterm, they could still hold the Senate a lot easier than they can hold the House. And they will try to do so much damage to Ken Paxton, but by the time the general election comes around, they hurt him in the general. And believe me, we're going to see the polls that show whoever the Democratic nominee is going to be will be up over Ken Paxton before the primary. Mark my words. There will be the Reuters Ipsos poll that shows that John Cornyn can easily win, but that Ken Paxton will lose to who the Democrat is. Bookmark this. Favorite this video. We are at the 1 hour and 12-minute mark. We are now 12 minutes over. Bookmark this today, because I am guaranteeing you, as sure as I stand here talking to the camera right now, those polls are coming. But in any event, there is some truth to the fact that the mud that the rent seekers and the military industrial complex and the deep state are going to sling at Ken Paxton. Oh, Big Pharma too, by the way. They're going to love to fund this. Don't forget, by the way, also I don't know what we call this industry, the Coyote Club. I don't know, but people who make an obscene amount of money off of illegal immigration, everyone from the cartels, the cartels to the coyotes and beyond, and the lawyers, the immigration lawyers, they make a fortune over it, and they're all liberal, of course. By the way, if you've ever seen the show I Am a Teenage Felon, or I Was a Teenage Felon, you will in one episode see an incredible story about a once upon a time young man, and you will see that he's a coyote, and he's a Trump-hating nutcase. Why? Not because he even thinks, Donald Trump is like a horrible person. It's solely because Donald Trump shuts down the border and ruins their business. You want to know how immoral that business is, you should go check that out. All right. That being said, as of right now, Ken Paxton is in fact the favorite. Even with John Cornyn's money, he is the favorite. That boot off the stage headline, we played that for you and John O'Shea-Kim on the show. We talked about it again during Ken Paxton's impeachment trial. By the way, he won even after that. All right. So with that in mind, it's 3:15. We are over. But I'm going to remind you one more time to like the videos, share them far and wide, subscribe. But the best place, of course, to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, where, like I said, soon we're going to start to drop some ideas. I know there's always everybody wants to add a ton of stuff to it, but there's two reasons why we obviously can't do that. One is it's more money. Two, I don't like questionnaires that are too long. Obviously, that leads to a longer LOI or length of interview. And the duration that interview takes is directly related to the response rate and the drop-off rate and everything else. So we want to make sure we're within a reasonable size for the questionnaire. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice quality responses so I could pack a poll with a whole lot of crap. Like you should not do that. All right. And that, by the way, again, link to the public polling project is below, as is the wellness company and everything. I did see that a bunch of you did get that from the wellness company. Smart move. All right. It's not even like you got a parasite right now. If you're a prepper like me, you want all these kits. You want to make sure you have them and that they are available. Store it in a safe, dark place, and those will last you a lot longer than the recommended expiration date. Okay. I feel like I'm forgetting something here, but if I am, you'll see it on Locals. You'll see it on everywhere else. I do want to just share this real quick that Trump is finally getting out of the White House. He will go visit the coal industry, and I think it's either going to be in Western Pennsylvania, is it West Virginia or is it Western Virginia? I'd have to look, Julie. I can't remember, but that's a good move, and I agree. All right. Let me see if I can get to a couple of these other ones on Locals. In 2016, China decided to break down chemical front doors and seize their servers in China when they were suspected that their Chinese partners were stealing or refusing their formula and violating their intellectual property sharing agreement. They were so trapped, and the executives were completely helpless. I helped my buddy do custom designer compounds as we were both process chemists, figuring out how to go from 1 gram of compound to the kilos. China is not your friend. That's totally true. Dread Robert, China has also slowed growth substantially since 2008. Yes, even with the fantasy numbers for GDP. And they are a fantasy, Robert. Absolutely, they're a fantasy. But WEF types are fine with managed decline and not just population. All true. Red Diver. Rich, why are we glazing Mark and Dan two-way anointing themselves as the only show that does X, Y, and Z because they bring on fat-ass Meghan McCain to speak on behalf of MAGA? I love Red Diver. You, Robert Barnes, Duran, and a few others have 10 times to show these effing dweebs with their shitty women repelling haircuts and their poorly fitted $20 Marshalls button-down shirts have. Holy shit. I love you, Red Diver. Holy shit. There's more, folks. And you've all been doing your shows for 5 years, not 6 months. Fuck those nerds. Go to war with them. Crush 'em. Oh my God, Red Diver, thank you. Laughter is good for the soul, and it's good for the body. I needed that. And Laura, I was reading the comments, so don't censor me. All right? That was good stuff. Yes, here's the second part to this. The idea that I like the idea of Paxton and the guy from Minnesota moving up in the party. But they hopefully left behind someone to replace them as good attorney generals. But how many of the good guys turn around and endorse go along to get along types? You know, if Paxton understands snakes all around him, he doesn't. He doesn't. Both, I know two good friends and myself who have tried. I mean, he does. He just figures I don't want to start all over again. And I remember was it 2020? I think it was. When did Paxton have to run for attorney general? No, it was 22, right? It was 22. I remember getting back from Texas doing something different, irrelevant, though I did see Ken there. And I said I was going to poll Texas, which I did. And I remember him, like so many others, I got this from JD, others, looking at their internal polling and going, is this right? And then John O'Shea called and was like, man, Ken's really nervous over this. It's like a 2.3-point race. And I'm like, no, it's not. Did you pull the attorney general's race? Of course, it's Ken Paxton. Because I don't always. It was 9 points. Paxton won by 9 points. That's why I was so hard on Tony the other day, because there already are Republicans who have these pollsters who put out BS in order to get a fundraising email out and say, did you see how close this race is? If you don't give us more money, a liberal's going to be the attorney general of Texas and they're going to open the border and everyone's going to get killed and your kids are going to get raped by these illegals. And oh my God, write a check. And it's crap. It's all crap. It's push polling. And if you're going to say the media is dishonest and their pollsters are dishonest and it's all narrative polling and it's all this and that, you better keep the damn moral high ground. And now that you know, you're effing with MySpace if you don't. Don't get it twisted. I'm not here to defend Republicans just because I attack the left. Nor am I here to defend their pollsters just because I attack the media's pollsters. You start doing the same crap, and I'm going to come after you too. Chris Wilson was a scam artist from WPA Intel. The polling they gave DeSantis was a con. The poll in Florida 6th was bullshit. It was a con. I don't care if he polls for the president, the Pope, God himself. You pull that crap, and I'm coming after you. I don't give a shit who I upset in Washington, D.C. I don't care if it costs me a contract. I don't even like campaigns anymore. All I care about is, and it sounds corny, all I care about is an honest industry. And for people who say that's always like that, Rich, it wasn't always like that. Once upon a time, campaigns wanted polling to be better than the public polling. They put vast amount of money into it to make sure that they weren't giving donor data. And that's what Republican pollsters apparently want to do these days. I don't have two to give. I don't care. You're going to cost me a Senate client or something like that? I don't care. Make whatever call you want to make. And maybe I am the truth. Since you wanted an asshole, you got an asshole. Since that's what you tell everybody I am anyway. Maybe you're jealous. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you're jealous. With all your millions, you're still not as good. Don't forget to like the videos and share them far and wide. All right. Nothing but love for you all. Be good. Have a safe day. Easter's coming up. I love Easter. I know that everybody obviously watching the show is not a Christian, but I get into a very good mood during time of year. Oh, that's another thing we can add. Do you remember last Easter's poll? You guys, I don't know how many of you actually saw that, but we asked if people believed in the resurrection. Oh, maybe we should add that if we have the chance to do it. Easter's coming up, but if we did it like April 5th, we're not gonna fund it in 6 days. I don't know. Maybe we will. But man, oh man, oh man, that would be cool. But anyway, I get into it because to me, it's like I love Christmas. Who doesn't love Christmas? The magic of Christmas is different and unmatched. But as I get to thinking about the sacrifice, what it takes, I gotta respect it. And I do on a whole other level. Every Easter, I make my lamb. I watch the Passion just to remind myself how badly they beat that man. You ever watch all of these shows, and the Bible from the History Channel did a good job, but like, do you know what he would have looked like? Ooh. That, and of course, there's actually data on this. This is the nerd I am. How long it took stories in antiquity to flourish, whether it was oral stories or whatever, mythology, religions, whatever. It spread throughout antiquity at a rate you didn't see that other movements have not experienced. And what accounts for that? I'm still a logical thinker, even by my faith, but what accounts for that? I don't know. The guy was raised from the dead. It's a pretty good start. What else would make your brother think you're not a nutcase? You're walking around, and he did. John did think he was a nutcase. I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I do really love Easter a lot. And, like what? I have a brother. If I was like, yo, Eddie, I don't know if I told you this. I'm the son of God. Right? You'd be like, Dad, Richard's lost his mind. Somebody Baker act this little man. He'd think I'm crazy. Rightfully so. Right? And even if I was like performing miracles and stuff, what eventually would make your brother admit you're the son of God and worship. Because I mean, John wasn't down with it for a long time. He thought he was an embarrassment to the family. He was causing trouble for the family. and he didn't like it. And then he becomes the head of the church in Jerusalem. Well, I mean, people could say, well, of course he wanted to be part of the movement. No, he was happy with his own life. He was happy up until the moment they crucified Christ. Now, it's just topic for another story, but I really, really love Easter, and I feel like it really comes with the season perfectly, and everything's sprouting up again. By the way, for new people, maybe you don't know this, I absolutely love my lawn. It's coming out of dormancy, obviously, even though it got colder today, and there are weeds everywhere. We all know my battle with the lawn man, okay? Whatever pre-emergent he put down did not work. I have Poa no. I have broadleaf weeds. I have rye in my beautiful Bermuda turf. So I need to start learning how to schedule myself a little bit better so I can get back out there and do it myself. Because A, I've been busy, or one, I've been busy. And two, or B, the clippings. You know, everywhere I've ever lived, the 5 boroughs, New Jersey, even other parts of the South, Florida, you could take the clippings and the guy's going to come every week from the county and take your clippings. Oh no, not here. Better buy a pickup truck or hire a guy who's going to bag it, which he didn't do. Because when you shoot broadleaf weeds and other crap, and Poa knows the worst, there's seeds popping out of Poa no. When you shoot it, guess what happens? Lawn geniuses everywhere. They sprinkle all over the ground for next year. And if you don't use the right pre-emergent on a Bermuda lawn, you get what I have out there right now. It's driving me nuts. So now I have to go and rescue my lawn. Problem is, it's a hybrid Bermuda. There is no seed for this. You got to get it from a sod farm. It's blue in the morning. It's beautiful. And I have to go and figure out what I can put on this lawn now that it's coming out of dormancy to kill broadleaf weeds. So if anybody knows their stuff about lawns, if you know Bermuda, I have Tifway. That's the kind of Bermuda I have. Celebration is beautiful, but Tifway is the way to go. I have Tifway 419. If you know what I have to use on this lawn without harming the lawn, and I don't think I can get rid of the rye this year. I think it's just there. Poa know it too, but I don't even know what I can put down for broadleaf weeds at this point. So if you know, let me know. Preferably something granular. I love the Andersons. This is not like a read. The Andersons have the best fertilizer. I do see they have pre-emergent stuff, but maybe I'm just not seeing it. Post-emergent, but let me know, because by God, I have to get this under control. Can't even feed it until I do, unless I feed it together in the same product, which would be great. Because you'll just feed the damn dandelions. This is why I don't like hire. You have to do everything. This is what goes back to the tariff discussion. This is what they've turned America into. Almost nobody does a job correctly anymore, even though you pay good money to get it done. Hard-earned money that you work your ass off for. If you want it done right, you have to do it your damn self. It's outrageous. And Laura and I were talking this morning. I blame the flower child generation for everything. I blame boomers for everything. You needed cheap goods. You didn't care what the economy was going to be like later because you got Social Security. You didn't care what the debt like's going to be later because you'll be dead. It must be, in my own opinion, the most selfish group of people to ever be raised in the United States of America. You wanted cheaper goods. Well, thank you for outsourcing our future. How about I take your Social Security away and learn the code? Because you got to just like, people are like, oh, Rich supports Trump. This, Rich does that. You don't know what the hell I believe. All right. If it was up to, if I had full authority for a day, it would be, I don't even think austerity covers it. Okay. Like, we are going down. I hope Trump's strategy works. I pray to God it does. But they have not been paying much attention to the sunsetting of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, nor are they getting any real cuts. Doge is getting the stuff, but of course they're just going to run and get judges to make sure their money stays, well, not all of it. They're going to lose a lot of it. I mean, Elon's going to find crap. And they should release a huge report to the American public. And then followed by an agenda. Congress has to cut this stuff now and force them to do it. Like, did you see Tom Bevan's tweet about yesterday when that Wall Street Journal poll came out? Of course they believe that those programs are filled with waste, fraud, and abuse. Of course they do. Like, what planet are we on? Get more aggressive. I got kids. Don't you have kids? How many of you have kids out there? Well, unlike the flower child generation, I give two rats, you know what, about how they're going to grow up or whether or not a debt bomb's going to go off in their face when I'm dead. Because it's going to happen. It's a matter of time. Man, it's 3:35. I ran it on and on. Let's leave it again with a good note. I'm going to do an Easter egg hunt at my church on Christmas. I mean, on Easter. On Easter Day, too, which is going to be great. All right. I hope you all have something planned for that, too. Community is very important. Extremely important. It's one of the reasons why I miss my old church in Gainesville so badly. Community engagement and activity was off the chain. Like, every single Sunday after Sunday service, it was like, I mean, not everybody always stayed, but it was like a lot of people, togetherness, some kind of fellowship. And that's a good thing, I'd encourage you to do that stuff. If you have a church that obviously does those programs, you should, All right, I'm out. I'll see you guys later. I will throw that up on locals. Okay, guys, we'll kick around a couple ideas. Maybe when I put the questionnaire together, we'll see what the fatigue score is, and we'll go from there about what we could or could not add. All right. Nothing but love for you. See ya. And as always, like Laura says, deuces.